Hello, and welcome back to another Chris McPherson Show Daily Dose. It's time to talk some hoops action. Round 5 of the NBL is in the book. Statement wins, record-breaking performances, and a few sides sliding into dangerous territory. We're going to break down all the key results and then roll straight into this week's power rankings. Of course, if you haven't already, make sure you hit subscribe, whether you're tuning in on YouTube or on your favourite podcast platform. That way you'll keep up to date with all of our episodes that are dropping as they go forward. But let's start with our Round 5 recap. And what a week it's been. A bumper, 8 games in total. Bryce Cotton breaking records at his new club. The Phoenix setting the biggest winning margin of the year so far. And another import parting ways with their side. Will the separation with Mason Jones be the last import we see depart mid-season? And is it going to be the right decision for the Wildcats? Only time will tell. Let's start in Hobart, where the Tasmania Jack Jumpers put the clamps on the Kings, taking it out 86-70. Tiger Campbell was the star, driving early momentum, racking up 21 points, while Josh Bannon added a 18 with 14 boards. And Sydney, look, they just couldn't find their rhythm. Only Galloway hit double figures, and the Kings' up and down roller coaster season continues. Across on the other side of the country on Wednesday night, the Perth Wildcats were handled by the Brisbane Bullets 110-93. Their import, Casey Prather, turned back the clock with 34-10, while Tyrell Harrison bullied his way to 27-15. Some huge numbers from a couple of their stars. The Wildcats, they look flat. Mason Jones top score with 19 in what would be his final game in Perth colours, and the questions only grow louder out west. Over to Adelaide on Thursday, and the 36ers rode Bryce Cotton's hot hand once again. They beat the South East Melbourne Phoenix 88-71. Cotton dropped 28. Isaac Humphries added a double-double, and the Sixers are rolling. For the Phoenix, Geordie Hunter's 16 points weren't nearly enough to stem the tide and get them into the contest. Heading over to Auckland, and the Breakers bounced back with an 82-65 win over the Jack Jumpers. PJC, Parker, Jackson, Cartwright looking electric, 21-6, and leading a side that's posted the fewest turnovers ever in an NBL game. They are really heading in the right direction finally. A big step forward for a team that desperately needed one. Back to Brisbane, and Melbourne United continued their undefeated rampage. 95-86, getting it done over the Bullets. It never really looked in doubt. CG43, again, deadly from deep with 22. Jalen Adams played the lone hand, trying to keep Brisbane alive. He got 29 points of his own, but United just look a level above the competition right now. We then headed up to Cairns on Saturday, and the 36ers took a thriller over the Taipans, 91-86. But this was the Bryce Cotton show. 53 points. That's right, 5-3. Breaking a 37-year-old Adelaide record. It was pure vintage MVP superstar Bryce Cotton, 16 of 29 from the field. Absolutely unstoppable off the dribble. Single-handedly dragging his side to victory, responsible for almost 60% of their points. Andrew Andrews was gallant with 23 for the Taipans, but the game will be remembered for one man and one man only, Mr. Bryce Cotton. And then at John Cain Arena, Saturday Night Lights, South East Melbourne made a huge statement. A 116-76 demolition of the defending champions, the Illawarra Hawks. Angus Glover led the way with 26. He had 7 of 8 threes before halftime, and it was all over by that point. The Phoenix having 66 points on the board at halftime. JaVale McGee did fight hard with a 22-11, a double-double, but he also fought a little too hard, getting fouled out of the game in the fourth quarter. The Hawks clearly outclassed up against the Phoenix. Is this a statement for them, or is it more inconsistency? And then Sunday, Melbourne United, they backed it up again, getting it done comfortably against the Breakers, 104-88. CG43 coming off the pine, 23 points. Jesse Edwards was solid inside, and the United juggernaut keeps on keeping on. And then to cap off the round, the Sydney Kings put the Perth Wildcats to the sword, 94-72. The Wildcats had an early lead, but the Kings blew them out in the second quarter to knock the doors off it. KD, Kendrick Davis, 25 points. Cooks and Delhi combined for another 31 between them. It's a clinical response from the purple and gold, and maybe just some green shoots in Sydney starting to show them maybe heading in that right direction. But let's head into our round 5 power rankings. And this week there is some movement right across the board. Let's run them down from 10 to 1. Starting with number 10, the Illawarra Hawks. The Wings are well and truly clipped. They've dropped down 3 places this week. JaVale McGee's doing his best to keep them relevant. But with McLaughlin out the door, no replacements yet in. Hickey sideline. They just don't have the guard depth. Maybe some of the depth players, Froling or Narkle, could provide a new look spark soon. Otherwise, this could spiral very quickly, and the defence of their title will be out the window before you know it. Moving into 9, and we've got the Cairns Taipans down 1 in the rankings from last week. A good roster, but too many drop games. The injury to McVeigh's hurting them. They were made to look like school kids by Bryce Cotton. Fair enough, he was historic, but the defensive lapses are unfortunately becoming a theme in the far north. Staying in Queensland for number 8, it is the Brisbane Bullets. They are up 2 spots from the bottom. A plucky win over Perth, and they were reasonably competitive against United. Casey Prather and Jalen Adams are starting to do some things right, but is it a spark or maybe a false dawn? We'll certainly know after their next 2 games as we start to get some real tempo from the Bullets. Moving up to 7, on the move up as well, is the New Zealand Breakers. All look lost a fortnight ago, but Parker Jackson Cartwright is dragging them back into it. Elite control, record low turnovers aside, maybe, just maybe, they're starting to find their springboard. To round out the bottom half of our rankings, it is the Perth Wildcats in 6. They've dropped down 3 spots from last week's 3rd. It's been a nightmare week. 2 losses. They've parted ways with Mason Jones. Was it the right move? That's a big question, but there was always talk about his attitude and why would a reigning G League MVP be let go. Not saying anything happened in Perth, but maybe this is actually an opportunity for them rather than a threat. Time will tell. The group's at a crossroads. They're either going to respond with fire or they're going to keep sliding. Right now, based on what we're seeing, it's probably actually leaning towards the slide. We then head to the Sydney Kings. They've slipped down 1. They are the Jekyll and Hyde of the NBL. Defensively strong when Suarez and Davis go forward, but the offense is patchy. Shot creation and perimeter shooting remain a real issue. They're searching and seeking consistency there. Brian Goorjian got sat down. That was a big talking point. The referees probably need to consider how quickly they're jumping the gun on these pieces. Into number 4, on the move up 1 position, is the Tasmania Jack Jumpers. Bryce Hamilton, Tiger Campbell and co. They're doing enough to stay relevant and then some. They grind, they defend, and they hang around. Magnay's got to step up and be consistent for them to stay top 4 calibre as they move forward. Into number 3, and we've got the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, the big movers. They're up 3. They blew the Hawks away in style, and with Wes Awundu to come in now, this team's ceiling is still rising. They look balanced, they look connected, but how often can they shoot like that from the perimeter is going to be the big question. Josh King's finally got them believing, but how long can that last, and can it be consistent? Into number 2, and steady in second spot, the Adelaide 36ers. 2 words, Bryce Cotton, 1 man. A 53-point night was won for the ages, but it's still a 1-man operation. They need to find some ways to support him consistently and get some shooting from the rest of their side. If they can do that, look out. And in at number 1, holding that spot, Melbourne United, undefeated, 7-0, and absolutely terrifying. Dropping over 100 a game, holding teams to the low 80s and doing it with ruthless balance. CG43 is heating up. Milton Doyle is dominating. Dean Vickerman's system is humming, and they've still got Shea Illy to come back in as well. They are absolutely the benchmark, and by some way. We head into round 6 now. Let's take a look ahead. It is Indigenous round. We're turning our eyes to. It's always one of the more special weeks on the NBL calendar. We get to celebrate that culture, creativity and contribution of our First Nations people and the incredible Indigenous athletes who've shaped Australian basketball at every level. We've got some amazing jersey designs for Indigenous round and a huge round of matchups to go with them. We start with the Cairns Taipans taking on the Perth Wildcats. 2 teams on the slide who can arrest their dip and turn things back in the other direction. 2 of the emerging sides, the Breakers and the Bullets, then go head-to-head. This one will be a silk cracker. And then the Phoenix. They get a chance to measure back up against the Kings on Thursday night. How will that shape for them? These 2 sides could be contenders, or are they pretenders? We'll know shortly. Then the Cairns Taipans play host to Melbourne United. That could be an interesting one as Melbourne look to make it 8-0. Cairns their second game of the round. While in Queensland, the Bullets will play host to their second game of the round up against the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. Again, further continuity for both sides would see them secure spots up towards the top 4 and heading towards the play-ins. Perth Wildcats will play host to Illawarra at the back end of the round. This is a must-win for both these sides. The Hawks will be fresh off a long break, heading over to Perth. Perth, their second game of the weekend. How does it shape? Only time will tell. And then the big one, Melbourne United versus the Adelaide 36ers. Dean Vickerman's star-studded lineup up against the Bryce Cotton show. Only one team's managed to slow Bryce so far this year. Can Melbourne United be the second? And then rounding it out, the Sydney Kings up against the Tasmania Jack Jumpers again. This is a big game for both these sides too. The Kings will want some immediate revenge. There's so much to look forward to, and that Melbourne-Adelaide clash is just going to be must-watch basketball. That's round 5, done and dusted. Melbourne are flying. Cotton's rewriting records, and the Hawks are just hanging on. Let us know in the comments who else you'd have in that top 3 right now. Who did we get right? Who did we get wrong? Are Adelaide legit, or are they just living off Bryce's brilliance? Make sure you are subscribed to the Chris McPherson Show on YouTube or your podcast platform of choice, and follow us across the socials. You can find us on all your favourite social media channels at The Chris Mac Show for all your NBL takes and much, much more. That closes out your NBL power rankings for round 5. Make sure to stay tuned for our YouTube channel live watch-alongs of NBL action later this round. And until next time, I'm Chris McPherson signing out on all of the black and white of your sporting landscape. No grey opinions here.